Imam Ali alayhis salam in his timeless words said the worst condition is that of a person who does not trust anyone due to his suspicion, and because of his bad effects no one else trusts him either. These words, preserved in Tajliat Hikmat page 99, contain a mirror for every soul who wishes to reflect on the reality of human relationships. The Imam does not simply point to a weakness of character, he unveils a disease of the heart that poisons both the individual and society. Suspicion corrodes the ability of a person to connect to others. When a man or woman sees every action, every smile, every word with suspicion, he loses the capacity to love and to believe in goodness. When he no longer trusts anyone, he becomes trapped in a prison of his own mind, cut off from companionship and real friendship. And when people around him sense that he does not trust them, they too withdraw, they cease to trust him in return, and thus he falls into the worst condition: isolation, distrust and loneliness. To understand this deeply, let us imagine a person whose eyes are always clouded by suspicion. He thinks that every act of kindness hides a selfish motive. He believes that every word of praise is flattery meant to deceive. He reads betrayal into loyalty and doubts sincerity even in the most innocent gestures. Such a person cannot build a marriage, cannot raise children with warmth, cannot maintain friendships, and cannot function within a community, for human bonds are built on trust. When suspicion dominates, trust collapses, and when trust collapses, the bridge between hearts burns to ash. And this is what Imam Ali alayhis salam warns against: the destruction of both inner peace and social harmony. The worst condition here does not simply mean sadness or difficulty, it refers to a deep moral and spiritual fall, a state where the human being has lost both the trust he might give and the trust he might receive. Without trust, life becomes empty. We may have wealth, but it brings no joy. We may have companions, but they feel like strangers. We may perform rituals, but without the openness of trust, the soul remains restless. Suspicion becomes a shadow that follows every step, whispering that no one is genuine, no one is honest, no one is to be loved, and in that state a person pushes everyone away until he finds himself alone and broken. Imam Ali alayhis salam connects two realities. One is that suspicion prevents a person from trusting others. The second is that as a natural consequence others cease to trust him too. This is the justice of life. Relationships are reciprocal. If I accuse everyone silently of dishonesty, people will soon sense my doubt and they will not confide in me. If I think everyone is lying to me, people will avoid opening their hearts to me. If I cannot believe in the honesty of others, why should they believe in my honesty? Thus suspicion does not only kill my trust, it kills the trust others might have had in me. In this way, suspicion becomes a poison that spreads outward, affecting the entire community. The lesson is also practical for our daily lives. Think about the family unit. If a husband suspects his wife of betrayal without reason, he constantly questions her, looks at her phone, interprets her silences as proofs of guilt. His suspicion will suffocate love. The wife who is innocent will feel humiliated and wounded. She will feel that her honesty is meaningless because he refuses to see it. She will withdraw her trust in him and distance herself emotionally. The home will be filled with tension. Children will grow up in anxiety. What began as a thought of suspicion ends as a storm that wrecks the home. The worst condition has arrived: distrust everywhere and no safe harbor. In friendships too, the poison of suspicion works silently. Imagine a friend who never believes the words of another. When told "I care for you," he thinks it is a lie. When invited with warmth, he assumes it hides selfish intent. When mistakes are forgiven, he suspects manipulation. Such a friend cannot hold another friend for long because no one likes to live under a constant cloud of doubt. Soon others avoid him. They no longer trust his words, his loyalty, or his promises. He becomes alone, carrying suspicion like a heavy stone. This is what Imam Ali alayhis salam described when he said no one else trusts him either. Suspicion also damages society. When members of a community see each other with constant doubt, unity breaks apart. Neighbors no longer support each other. Leaders cannot trust the people, and the people cannot trust the leaders. Charity is seen as a trick. Hospitality is seen as hypocrisy. Promises are seen as traps. In such a society, cooperation dies, progress halts, and the social fabric unravels. And all of this stems from suspicion. The disease of the heart, when spread widely, becomes the downfall of nations. This is why the Imam called it the worst condition. It is not only the fall of an individual, it is the fall of entire communities. On the spiritual level, suspicion blocks the path to Allah. When a person cannot trust others, he also finds it hard to trust Allah. He begins to doubt the wisdom behind divine decrees. He interprets trials as cruelty rather than mercy. He looks at blessings with suspicion, thinking they hide some coming harm, and in this state his heart cannot submit fully to his Lord. Iman is trust. At its core, to believe is to trust that Allah is merciful and wise, but when suspicion governs the heart, faith weakens, prayers become hollow, worship becomes empty, and despair grows. The heart that suspects everything will even suspect its creator, and this is indeed the worst condition. The words of Imam Ali alayhis salam are also a remedy for the modern age. Today we live in a world where suspicion is widespread. People doubt the news they read, they doubt the promises of politicians, they doubt the loyalty of friends, and sometimes they even doubt the reality of their own worth. Technology has increased this condition. Messages are misread, social media posts are interpreted with suspicion, words are stripped of tone and intentions, and people fight over misunderstandings. Marriages collapse over mistrust, friendships die in silence, families break apart over imagined betrayals. The wisdom of the Imam is timeless because he diagnosed a disease that has always lived in the human heart but has grown more dangerous in our time. To heal from this disease, one must first recognize its suspicion often hides itself as intelligence. A suspicious person may think he is clever for not being deceived, but Imam Ali alayhis salam shows that suspicion is not wisdom, it is weakness. It leads to the worst condition. The cure is to cultivate husn al-dan, good opinion of others. Islam teaches us to assume the best unless clear proof shows otherwise. The Quran commands believers to avoid much suspicion because some suspicion is sin. The Prophet, peace be upon him, and his family taught that to think well of others is a branch of faith. When a person assumes good, he creates peace within his heart and in the hearts of others. Trust grows, love blossoms, and society flourishes. Let us illustrate with a story. Once a man approached a believer and asked, "How do you maintain so many friends?" The believer replied, "I see them with the eyes of mercy. When they do good, I thank Allah. When they err, I excuse them. When I do not understand their actions, I assume good intention. This way my heart remains light and my bonds remain strong." This is the opposite of suspicion, and this is the path to trust. Imam Ali alayhis salam would want us to learn from such wisdom, for without it life becomes barren and lonely. The words also remind us of responsibility. Every believer is a mirror for his brother or sister. If we fall into suspicion, we damage not only ourselves but also others who might have trusted us. A father who suspects everyone teaches his children to suspect too. A teacher who doubts his students kills their confidence. A leader who mistrusts his followers loses their support. Thus suspicion multiplies across generations. The Imam wants us to break this chain by learning to trust, learning to give the benefit of doubt, and learning to build hearts instead of walls. There is also a psychological dimension. Suspicion exhausts the mind. The suspicious person is always analyzing, always doubting, always fearing betrayal. He cannot rest, he cannot smile sincerely, he cannot feel secure. Every conversation becomes a puzzle, every act of kindness becomes a riddle to solve, and this mental burden weakens him over time. He becomes paranoid, isolated, and depressed. This is why Imam Ali alayhis salam calls it the worst condition. It is a condition where body, mind, and soul all suffer at once. Suspicion is not just a thought, it is a prison that chains the heart. In contrast, trust liberates. Trust allows a person to breathe freely, to love without chains, to forgive without fear, to believe in others and in Allah. When a person trusts, he opens doors to mercy. When a community trusts each other, it becomes strong against enemies. When families trust each other, they become havens of love. Trust is strength, suspicion is weakness. Imam Ali alayhis salam wants us to choose strength, not weakness, life, not death, connection, not isolation. As we reflect further, we realize that the statement of the Imam is both diagnosis and warning. It tells us what the worst condition looks like so that we may avoid it, but it also warns us of what happens when we allow suspicion to take root. What begins as a small doubt can grow into a tree of mistrust with branches of lies, fruit of division, and roots of hatred. The wise believer cuts it early, replacing suspicion with charity of thought, generosity of spirit, and remembrance of Allah. In this way he protects his soul and his community. Let us not forget that Imam Ali alayhis salam lived in a time of great political turmoil, betrayal, wars, and hypocrisy. If anyone had reason to be suspicious, it was him, yet he taught us not to fall into suspicion. He himself trusted Allah completely and dealt with people with justice and fairness. His life is proof that one can live surrounded by enemies and still not allow suspicion to poison the heart, for trust in Allah purifies the soul and grants clarity to the believer. If we claim to love him, we must learn from him. In conclusion, the statement of Imam Ali alayhis salam that the worst condition is of the person who neither trusts others nor is trusted by them is not just a description of a weakness, it is a guiding principle. It reminds us that life without trust is the worst form of existence, and that to cultivate trust is to live fully. Suspicion destroys, trust creates, suspicion isolates, trust unites, suspicion blinds, trust opens eyes, suspicion chains, trust liberates. The path of faith is the path of trust in Allah and in His creation. May we learn to protect ourselves from suspicion. May we learn to see with eyes of mercy. May we learn to build bonds of trust so that we may never fall into the worst condition described by the commander of the faithful. This script extends the thought into multiple examples, reflections, and lessons, drawing upon family, friendships, society, spirituality, psychology, and history, showing how suspicion ruins life and trust rebuilds it. The wisdom of Imam Ali alayhis salam continues to shine as a lantern, guiding hearts away from darkness and toward light, for only with trust can human beings flourish, and only with trust can communities remain strong, and only with trust can faith grow in the heart.